So 1st and 2nd Samuel are named after Samuel, who is a prophet, or he would have been called a seer during that time of God. And he is the one that anointed both Saul in chapter 10 and later David in chapter 16 as king of Israel. Samuel rebukes Saul in chapter 13, and the Lord rejects Saul as king in chapter 15. Both of these instances are due to Saul disobeying the word of the Lord. David is anointed as the next king in chapter 16, slays Goliath in 17, and grows in popularity amongst the people as he is victorious in his military victories in chapter 18. Saul tries to kill David multiple times due to his growing popularity throughout the chapters of 18 to 16. And in chapter 25 is when Samuel dies. David, now fleeing from Saul, who is trying to kill him, escapes into the land of the Philistines and acts as a mercenary for Achish, son of Maok, king of Gath. And fun fact, Gath also is where Goliath is from. So at this point, David is fighting for Goliath's hometown. And Gath is one of the 5 major Philistine cities. And this was in chapter 27. The Philistines assemble and prepare to fight Israel at the beginning of chapter 28. And this story takes place near the end of Saul's life. And he and his sons will die in this battle against the Philistines in chapter 31. So I know that was a lot. I hope some of it stuck and is able to inform you about the text. So now we're going to move into 1 Samuel chapter 28, verses 3 to 25. Now Samuel had died, and all Israel had mourned for him and buried him in Ramah, his own city. And Saul put the mediums and the necromancers out of the land. So this is Saul's own law that he declares, that the mediums and necromancers will not be allowed in the land. The Philistines assembled and came and encamped at Shunem. And Saul gathered all Israel, and they encamped at Gilboa. When Saul saw the army of the Philistines, he was afraid, and his heart trembled greatly. And when Saul inquired of the Lord did not answer him, either by dreams or by Urim or by prophets. Then Saul said to his servants, "Seek out for me a woman who is a medium or witch, that I may go to her and inquire of her." And his servants said to him, "Behold, there is a medium at Endor." Now Endor was a Canaanite city, roughly 5 miles away from where Saul is, and it was behind the enemy lines. So because of this, Saul disguised himself and put on other garments and went, he and 2 men with him. And they came to the woman by night. And he said, "Divine for me by a spirit, and bring up for me whomever I shall name to you." The woman said to him, "Surely you know what Saul has done, how he has cut off the mediums and the necromancers from the land. Why then are you laying a trap for my life to bring about my death?" But Saul swore to her by the Lord, "As the Lord lives, no punishment shall come upon you for this thing." Then the woman said, "Whom shall I bring up for you?" And he said, "Bring up Samuel for me." When the woman saw Samuel, she cried out with a loud voice. And the woman said to Saul, "Why have you deceived me? You are Saul." The king said to her, "Do not be afraid. What do you see?" And the woman said to Saul, "I see a lowercase g God coming up out of the earth." He said to her, What is his appearance?" And she said, "An old man is coming up, and he is wrapped in a robe." And Saul knew that it was Samuel, and he bowed with his face to the ground and paid homage. Then Samuel said to Saul, "Why have you disturbed me by bringing me up?" Saul answered, "I am in great distress, for the Philistines are warring against me, and God has turned away from me and answers me no more, either by prophets or by dreams. Therefore, I have summoned you to tell me what I shall do." And Samuel said, "Why then do you ask me, since the Lord has turned from you and become your enemy? The Lord has done to you as he spoke by me. For the Lord has torn the kingdom out of your hand and given it to your neighbor David. Because you did not obey the voice of the Lord and did not carry out his fierce wrath against Amalek, therefore the Lord has done this thing to you this day. Moreover, the Lord will give Israel also with you into the hand of the Philistines, and tomorrow you and your sons will be with me. The Lord will give the army of Israel also into the hand of the Philistines. So this is a very intriguing story with many interesting questions that come out of this, such as like, why would God allow sorcery to bring back one of his people, one of his prophets? But the original question is, does a witch bring back a prophet from the dead? I believe that you can answer both yes and no and be able to completely defend both views. So if you believe that yes, this was a witch bringing back a prophet from the dead, then God allows the witch to summon Samuel the prophet. The witch is initially surprised because she did not expect anything to happen, but God, in his power, allows it to happen. The word spoken by Samuel matches what we know about Samuel, that this is in line and in character with what Samuel would say. And then lastly, Saul recognizes Samuel as Samuel. But you can also say that no, the witch does not bring back Samuel from the dead, that God was not involved in this demonic practice in any way. The witch summoned a demonic spirit. The demonic spirit takes on the form of Samuel and deceives Saul, and the spirit curses Saul and his sons. I do not believe that this is an essential issue or even a secondary or tertiary issue. That you can believe yes or no to this question, and it will have zero impact on your faith and your theological implications. But it is an interesting question, and I would encourage you guys to read the text for yourselves, to dive into it, and I would like to know if you personally believe that it was or was not Samuel. For me, I think that the text and the evidence lean more towards it actually being Samuel, but I want to take our focus off of Samuel, off of the witch, off of the demonic practices, and focus mainly on Saul here, because that's what I believe that this story is about. I want to bring up a passage from Deuteronomy 18, 10 to 15. And this is what the text says. Let no one be found among you who sacrifices their son or daughter in the fire, who practices divination or sorcery, interprets omens, engages in witchcraft, or casts spells, or who is a medium or spiritist, who also consults the dead. Anyone who does these things is detestable to the Lord. Because of these same detestable practices, the Lord your God will drive out those nations before you. You must be blameless before the Lord your God. The nations you will dispossess. Listen to those who practice sorcery or divination. But as for you, the Lord your God has not permitted you to do so. The Lord your God will raise up for you a prophet like me from among you, from your fellow Israelites. You must listen to him. Now, there are two different views on the book of Deuteronomy. The traditional view is that Moses is the author of the book of Deuteronomy, and a more modern view would be that it was later discovered or written after the events of 1 Samuel. But either way, I believe that this is an important passage in relation to the story that we're talking about. So if it was according to tradition written by Moses, this would have been a law that Saul would have been familiar with. And the irony here is that the text contrasts wicked practices and then says, instead of these practices, you must consult your prophet or the men that God have appointed for you. But what we see Saul doing is kind of twisting or perverting God's word to justify what he wants to do. That he needs to hear from the Lord, from Samuel, by any means necessary. And so he twists this law into his own justification. But if this was written after the events of 1 Samuel, then this is just a reminder and a re-emphasis on the story of 1 Samuel, where it's directly pointing out what Saul had done wrong and is actively trying to correct or adjust the view of the Israelite people. And so I want to just kind of humanize Saul a bit, because growing up and listening to these stories, I've always thought of Saul as the bad guy, the villain, or the foolish man who didn't listen to the Lord. But let us put ourselves in Saul's shoes for a minute. He is the king of a nation. He is at war with an opposing force beyond his capabilities. He inquires of the Lord, and the Lord is silent. He is about to fight a battle. He knows that he cannot win. And so this is what leads Saul to do, which leads him to the actions that he takes. And so I want to ask of everyone here, if you are fighting a battle you cannot win, and you are in the most stressful circumstances you have ever faced, and you turn to the Lord and plead with the Lord, and the Lord is silent, my question is, what do you do next? Fortunately, all of us are gathered here today, not as followers of Saul, but we call ourselves followers of Jesus Christ. Amen. And so when Jesus is faced with temptations, he uses the word of the Lord to fight the temptations. When Jesus asks that the cup be taken from him, and the Lord does not grant his request, Jesus submits anyway. When Jesus is on the cross, suffering a death that he does not deserve to die, that at any moment he could have called his angels to stop the entire thing, he would have been fully justified in doing so and had all the power and means to do so. But he submitted himself to the will of the Father. So as we remember this, I want to just read 1 Chronicles 10:13-14, that this is the legacy of Saul. Saul died because he was unfaithful to the Lord. He did not keep the word of the Lord and even consulted a medium for guidance and did not inquire of the Lord. So the Lord put him to death and turned the kingdom over to David, son of Jesse. I hope that no one here is dabbling in witchcraft or black magic. I hope that's a given. But the main point I want to drive home here is that when you are in a tough situation, when God is silent, I would encourage you all to continue to trust in the Lord, continue to inquire of the Lord, and always set your sights on Jesus, who is the example that we are to follow. Let's pray.